Okay, so welcome back to the summer check-in, garden check-in for school gardeners who just wanted to connect with each other, problem solve some issues around their garden. This is the second in our kind of casual kind of sessions that we've had this summer, and we'll be back to our regular sessions as of late September. So feel free to rename yourself with your name and the community you live in. There's just a small group here, so it'll be casual conversations and really a lot of room for discussion. So we'll just kind of get right to it. And we have this scheduled from 10 to 11, but if it ends sooner than that, so be it. Good. So as mentioned a moment ago, we will be recording this just for those who want to, who couldn't make it and who want to check in. So myself and Addie, who have been presenting this whole series of the mentorship program, would like to acknowledge that we're presenting from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lekwungen peoples, including the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. And here we are. I know we all know each other, so yeah, fresh back from vacations, Addie and myself feeling ready to go for another school year. We've also got, we actually have two staff members on the call today, but Roanne has joined us again. Roanne is a farmer and a local food system enthusiast who is living up in Prince George. And so she's been part of our team for the past couple of years, and is part-time, does farm to school work, and then part-time does actual farm work. So she'll be here to help us problem solve questions that might show up. And Sonia is also a new member of our staff who is replacing Serena in the Kamloops region, will be joining us today, and she's going to be helping with the mentorship program moving forward into next year, when we've decided we're going to kind of run back this program and try to make it be a standing program. So we are Farm to School BC, healthy local food, school and community connectedness, and hands-on learning are our sort of pillars that we strive towards. And we are a program of the Public Health Association of BC that is supported by the province of British Columbia and the Provincial Health Services Authority.
I had a question on that, though. Is it part of Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Education or something else?
Funding for this program comes through the Ministry of Health. So it's a health-focused program. Yeah.
So when I go to lobby, I should go to both education and health to continue on.
I can't counsel on that, but it sounds great.
Okay.
Our regional hubs and school districts there, for those who might happen to fall within the hubs. So these are kind of ever growing. But we are a provincial organization, and we support outside of those hubs, specifically through our grants, but then also through our resource creation and newsletters and things of that nature. If you happen to fall into one of those hubs, then you may want to reach out to any of the following individuals who represent that area. If you go to our website, their contacts are there under our team, under the hubs section as well. And so I will pass it over to Addie to take on these next few slides, please.
Thanks. So today we're going to do another little check-in, see how things are going so far this summer. I'll pause the recording again so that we can, discuss bindweed issues. And then later in the call, we're going to talk a little bit about some ideas for fall harvest. So some crop ideas that you can plant right now so that they'll be ready in September, October for your classes. Generate some ideas about how to harvest with your class. And then we'll talk, our next session will be September 20th. So a few weeks into school, but we're hoping to get some ideas that we can circle back to for a September session. And I have a bunch of activities that I found online for different harvesting ideas. So we're gonna share those. So I'm just going to pause our recording right now. Start it again. So we have some resources that we've created for different regions in the province. obviously you two are from the coast, but what are some crops that you've planted for a September harvest?
This is directed at us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The rest of us are staff, so it's just you.
Okay, so over the last, because it's hard to keep the seedlings well watered and leave them in the garden over the summer, I've actually done a lot of the seeding at home. Where I can water it every day and keep an eye on it so that it doesn't fry in the heat. So as I say, the carrots were done. I've got a lot of brassicas going now. So we've got kohlrabi, various kinds of kale, and purple sprouting broccoli. And I'm just starting, once it cools down a little bit, I'm going to do more of the lettuces and mizuna, that sort of thing. But it's still a little bit, I haven't got a cool enough place for germinating lettuce. It germinates ideally at about 20 degrees. So it's not great for that yet. And with them, last week I planted some radish directly into the garden along the drip lines. So that's basically the ones that we're at the moment. Anything you want to add, Laura?
Arugula, I've got a few. Arugula's started as well, and the rocket that tend to be good into the winter. We have a lot of perennial arugula that we will be able to harvest. I guess do we have to take the flowers off those, Erin, then they'll just stay good?
I think so. I mean, the flowers have ended up going all over the pathway, so some of them have been selectively removed anyway, but there's a perennial arugula everywhere, so I haven't worried too much about making sure that we have everything we need.
Yeah, a perennial arugula is not as tasty for the kids. It's a little harder. It's not but it's not a kid favorite anyway. So I only have like about 10, 12 plants. But what else have we? Well, purple sprouting broccoli, we're trying to plant more, but that's definitely a good school garden plant. Kids can eat it raw. They like it. It's, fun. It's purple.
Yeah.
And some of the parsley and some of the other herbs we've tried to plant. Right now we've got beans that are coming on, and we're trying to keep picking the beans so that there's still beans in September when the kids come back. We have the purple beans. We will plant
like
the
string
garlic
beans.
Yeah. I think they're called purple peacock.
Oh. Do you do any like drying beans?
Not this year. We did last year. We had along a fence, we had a section of the green French beans, like the long, thin green ones. And then beside them, we had some drying beans. And we had to put up signs on the thing that says, eat these ones, don't eat these ones.
Right.
And it was a bit of an issue because the kids weren't differentiating. So this year, we just went with the edible ones as opposed to the dried beans.
Okay.
But that was definitely a bit of a challenge last year.
Yeah, they take one bite and then spit it out and throw it on the ground. And we found all these bean pods that were not ready to harvest. It was like, oh, what a waste.
Yeah.
And again, I guess we could dry them and give them away. We had a very good garlic harvest it was the 2nd of August, much later than we normally do, but we got a much better crop. I think this year was pretty good for garlic for most people, I think. Even the horticulture center was saying their garlic was good. And so we've kept, 65 bulbs of the biggest ones to plant back. So we would be planting that in I guess October. Erin, I might be away still, but if we waited till the beginning of November, I'd be back. So we can discuss timing on that.
Yeah, I think that the climate changes, our season is changing a little bit. Like it was later spring, the warm weather came later in the spring, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. We'll get the same thing in the fall. So the whole season gets sort of brought back a little bit by a week or two. So I think we'll probably be fine for that. The other thing we've got is the herbs, which I've harvested multiple times, and I have several big canning jars full of rosemary, oregano, working on the thyme, mint. And one of the sort of thoughts in the back of my mind is whether or not this would be suitable for fundraising for the schools. So, so that's something else we kind of can throw around as a different idea, because once you've got the herbs growing and you're harvesting them, then it's a good supply.
Also, the herb in a little pot, we called it a barbecue mix. I may have said that before, and we didn't they didn't look as good as I was hoping they would look. So we couldn't really charge as much as I thought we might be able to. I was sort of hoping $15 a little, like if it had, rosemary, thyme, sage, marjoram, parsley in it, that maybe we could. They were looking a little thin, but we're going to keep them growing and going, and then hopefully we'll maybe be able to sell them next spring.
Mhm. The other thing is it was a
Ooh.
valuable lesson for the kids in terms of propagation.
Mhm.
Because I mean the overall of the propagation, you've got your seed saving and your planting seeds, but the other end of it is division and starting from cuttings. So it was definitely, they had the lesson in terms of they used root stimulant and planted these cuttings. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we saved quite a few seeds yesterday. We had lettuce and the peppercress and what else did I label?
You tied up some more of the brassicas as kale.
Yeah. So, and I cut off some other seeds, and so we'll be they put them in paper bags, and they'll be winnowing those in the fall, and then we'll be packaging them up. Well, I won't be. Somebody will. Yeah.
Cool. So it sounds like there's lots of things that we can plant. Rowan, I was just thinking, do you have any suggestions for thinking about different like varieties for like spring, like, a cabbage isn't a cabbage, like there's different spring versus like a fall harvest one. Do you find that you have to, what do you look for when you're picking the varieties?
Yeah, well, being North Central, definitely looking for cold hardy and bolt resistant, because our season's so short and it can get quite hot, and the variability of temperatures is quite a bit. But also, of course, focusing on those like those ones that are disease resistant and have those elements. But also, of course, seeking locally adapted seeds is always high on my priority list, from credible sources and people that are also doing the due diligence to make sure that there's not passing along different diseases with the seeds, because it can be really, really tempting to take free seeds. People are offering a lot, but then, yeah, who knows what you're going to be bringing in with that. So yeah, I guess those are the main things I definitely focus on. Yeah, I don't really have too much in terms of like favorite varieties for too many things, but the Coastal Star lettuce is definitely a shining star for us this season. I just left a bunch just hanging out during like all the heat ups and downs temperatures we've had, and they've just started to bolt now, and they were planted at the beginning of the season. So
Called Coastal Star?
I think it was a West Coast seeds variety, but
Nice. We can go to the next slide here, Marcus. This is just some suggestions of some things you can plant now. So they said carrots and things, if you have, Erin. It's also a really fun idea to do, I think you have them at Colquitt's, but doing some spring bulbs is also a nice idea that you can be planting. Everybody gets so focused on food, but it actually works quite well in the school year that you can be planting things in the fall, and then that same class can enjoy the crop in the springtime.
It's also a time to think about pollinators when you're thinking about flowers in the garden.
That's a good connection.
Yeah, one thing that I picked up just this last week, and it was the first time I'd seen it in a pamphlet form. West Coast Seeds have now put out a brochure, Guide to Companion Planting, and it's about a 10-15 page booklet. Excellent. It's got way more stuff in it than most other things that I've seen. They've got plant guides, just sort of looking up here for amaranth. Plant amaranth with corn to shade the corn and retain water. Amaranth attracts predatory ground beetles that feed on caterpillars and other soft-body invertebrates. And then it goes through, so it includes anything that flowers. So where are we? Find a flower for you. Cosmos provides food and habitat to parasitoid wasps, taconid flies, lacewings, hoverflies, minute pirate bugs, spiders, ladybug beetles, and so on, all the rest of it. And then at the very end of it, it's got a companion planting chart as well in terms of what grows with what for the vegetables. So it's one of the most inclusive things I've seen. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's online as well.
Yeah, should look it up.
Yeah, it's the best one I've seen. So just looking on the back to see if it, no, it doesn't say, but I would imagine on their website, if they've got it on the brochure, it's probably available on the website as well.
I think I have it up here. Guide companion planting. Guide
Yep,
to
that's the one.
Yeah. Here, I'll put a link to it in here.
Great, thanks, Ron. Yay, more resources.
Yeah. See.
Okay, so just a couple slides that we had at our last one as well, but just kind of as a reminder of even though we are kind of moving out of the heat of the season right now, that watering is still really important, especially for those like fruit bearing plants that are working hard to get like tomatoes and squash and different things along those lines. You want to still be consistent with your water at this time of year. Also a very crucial time of the year to try your best to keep the water off of certain leaves, like anything in the squash family and tomatoes, because this is kind of prime powdery mildew kind of season here. So that's all just a point of that. And I know we had the discussion earlier about some of those options too, if that is a major issue for you, is, you know, soaker hoses, drip irrigation, different things like that, so that you're not doing that sort of top-down watering. And we were just talking a little bit about different plants that you can plant and seeds that you can get going for fall harvest, and in some cases for next year. Just reminders that even at this time of year, you still want to look to harden off your plants. You don't want to just plug them directly from maybe indoors, right outside on a cool night. So look to also plant ideally on an overcast day, and really baby those plants in the first few days with the watering. Mulching around the base of transplants can also be really great, especially for, you know, woody species, woody plants and things like that really need some consistent moisture in the soil so that they can establish. Obviously, in a very large garden, it's hard to be mulching around everything, but that can be a good recommendation. I've done a lot with straw and stuff, which is kind of a little bit more affordable than wood chips, unless you were to go through kind of like an arborist company, which can donate wood chips. And so, yeah, so, and then just in terms of seeds, planting prior to rain is great, and then watering daily is also really great. And don't forget to thin. I just had these two things actually happen with me in my own garden with carrots, was that I was watering too lightly for my carrots, and I didn't thin them, and I ended up with a bunch of like stumpy carrots that are like this. They had the width and the girth of the carrot was great, but they only went about that far. So I ended up just doing roasted carrots with them, but it was because I not enough deep watering. It was too much just kind of surface watering. And then I thought I had thinned well, but you really got to thin those carrots if you want to see them like they look like at the farmer's market. And yeah, just already obvious, but avoid planting right before heat spells. So take a peek, and if it's looking like it's going to be scorching over the next few days, avoid planting on those days.
I like your idea of just starting them at home, and then, you know, especially right now, moving them into so you can keep an eye on them, because you can't visit them once a week. So
exactly, it's the only way to keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
I've got a comment for you, Marcus, about the carrots. I just learned this. I did an advanced botany course over the last few weeks, and anything that has a taproot doesn't have the roots close to the surface. So you have to really deep water those ones, because they can't compensate. Like anything that's got fibrous roots will pick it all up from the upper level just under the surface. But anything that just goes with a taproot does not have those fibrous roots close to the surface, and it needs the moisture deep down to pick it up. So really important to water deeply for things that have a taproot, because they just can't get the moisture otherwise.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I learned it firsthand.
That's a good
Literally
example.
like this, and then a very
Like,
thin
that's the
one.
water.
Yeah. I was gone for 3 weeks during like the crucial time of those carrots, and there's, yeah, it's tough to set up like the irrigation for like these, you need like almost different zones that you're committed to, where it's like, okay, over here is kind of a different, deeper, irrigation, and over here is sort of the top down for all our new seeds and maybe lettuces that can help cool them down. And yeah, it can be very tricky. And it's like, comes back to almost like garden design, like in the very initial stages, it's like, okay, well, like, let's have these zones, and based on those zones, you're going to have different watering. And
And then you have to do crop rotation. So how do you
That's what I was just gonna say. And then it's like, well, then it all changes.
Yeah. So maybe you have almost like this little package of irrigation that moves with them around and just like plugs into the, to the outlet or something.
Yeah, the controllers that we got at the school, because we built on building foundation and it runs away, they can turn on 4 times a day for like 10 minutes per zone, which really helps. And they go on earlier, so throughout the day, 4 in the morning starting, and that way we seem to be getting our watering right. I just thought of another great thing for kids that they love to eat is the gooseberries or ground cherries. Those little papery, look like a tomatillo, but they're sweet. And those are really fun. And we didn't have so much luck with them. It's funny, the year before they seeded themselves in totally like in our path and they did really well. I guess no competition, put them in the garden and I don't know what happened, but they didn't do as well as they did the year before for some unknown reason.
Yeah, one that I also really love that I've put into a number of school gardens is the pink currants. So they're a lot sweeter and than the typical currants, and they're highly productive as well. But it is a bit more of a summer harvest with them. That's the only thing. I was just back in Montreal and I visited the first school garden that I helped to build, and I saw some of these ones that were like, at this point, I guess 8 or 9 years old, these pink currants, and they were just ginormous. Like it was just,
Wow.
It was crazy because when they first went in, they were just these little things, and now they were just so productive, and kids really like them because they like similar to gooseberry, less pricky than gooseberry, but similar, where you got to kind of look under the leaves and kind of try to find them. They're kind of hidden, which is fun. I'll pass it back over to Addie with harvesting with your class, please.
Yeah, these are just some tips that I found about, I think different teachers have different comfort levels, maybe with COVID and things, but this was the kidsgardening.org website. It's amazing. And they had a really nice article about just making sure everybody's hands are washed, using clean containers, using clean water, just kind of some basic hygiene around harvesting and making sure that you get it all set up before you start. I think I like to bring my kids out and I get so excited and I'm like, oh no, I forgot to get them to wash their hands and you're not going to send it back in. And anyway, just thinking about these things, kind of before you start. So I just wanted to check in, like Erin and Laura Lynn, was there any, how do you set up harvesting? We have a couple of minutes. Like if you were going outside and you were picking things, like, are you having students eat it right away? Are you going to pick it for later? Does it depend? Like,
it totally depends. Sometimes, we try and stop them, and it's like, we have these wonderful golden raspberries and they, the kids love them. And you realize that the Tuesday kids get, because no one's been there Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we didn't have classes. Tuesday kids get all the golden raspberries, and you try and say, well, pick 2, but don't keep eating. And it's the hardest thing because they'll pick them when they're not even ripe. If they don't pull off, it's like someone would enjoy that in 2 days time, but you rip it off there, you put it in your mouth and you don't enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's like, don't be greedy, but we don't try and harvest the berries to bring them back inside. I was saving a bunch of really these beautiful heirloom tomatoes that we were going to have in our farm to school lunch that Erin grew, Carburetor Charlie. And I turn around and these kids are eating it like an apple. They grabbed them and they were eating, they were enjoying them. But I'm like, oh, okay, never anticipated that a whole beautiful big tomato be eaten by one child, And so it is hard to know. We did pick we ended up picking out all the tomatoes and we ended up ripening them. And I never had successfully done that, covered them up with newspaper and ripened them out and then either dehydrated them or used them in the farm to school lunch and stuff. So yes, wash your hands when you're going to pick the tomatoes, and usually the tomatoes are not something they're going to, like the kids that love cherry tomatoes will sit there and eat lots of them. And there's 1 in 4 kids statistically proven, love cherry tomatoes, and they will eat a lot of them. And I think that that's okay. You know, if they really like them and they're not going to waste them, they can just sit there and eat them. So I think the answer is it depends.
Yeah. And it's kind of a balance of like, well, how much do we have and how much, who do we need to share it with? And
right.
The other issue is teaching them how to pick correctly so they're not damaging the plant. So in other words, using 2 hands when they're taking the beans off rather than just pulling the bean and damaging the plant and taking more.
Yeah, I think for most things you need 2 hands, and you do have to teach them that, because otherwise they will rip the whole thing out of the ground. And then, you know, like even if it's a small kale plant, they'll rip it out of the ground. And it's like, no, you need to hold on to it and break it off, and teach them how to harvest kale. Like you pull it down and do the bottom leaves first, right? You don't, like if someone decapitated you, you're dead. But if someone takes your fingers off, you know, you're still alive. So, you know, go.
Is that how you explain it?
Yeah. And we also say, like, the face of the garden. I said, okay, you know, just imagine you lie on your back, and if I was to step on your face, how would you feel? Like, would you like, I'll try not to break your nose and gush out your eye. They're like, what? I'm like, so the face of the garden is like that. You do not walk on the face of the garden, because you will hurt the structure of the soil. You'll hurt the plants. You don't walk on the face of the garden, because I'm not going to walk on your face, you know? So another little comment. Took me a while to figure that one out.
Yeah, I like that. The face of the garden.
Yeah, we try to make the pathways really obvious, like wood chips, like really try and make it so that because they're kind of interesting shaped beds, and they 4 by 4 meters with little lollipop inroads, but they don't get, and sometimes they cut right across one of these, you know, edges that have stuff planted. So it's looking better now. And then put things on the corners, broken pots or something that denote the corner. That helps.
Yeah, clear pathways. Cool. So these are some tips about, like, after you've harvested, you're bringing it back. We'll be promoting it more in the fall. But there's some preserving activities. You can do dehydrating or freezing. Project Chef also has some really awesome recipes that kind of step by step if you're doing any cooking. And BC Ag in the Classroom also has some great recipes here. You can just
a lot of schools also have the fruit and veggies in the classroom that comes in, right? And sometimes when there's extra apples or tomato, whatever there is, we especially the apples, we will collect them up if they've been there for a week now. And even if they have like a pencil stab or a bruise or whatever, we teach about cutting that out. And then we have apple choppers that break them into 8, and then we cut each of those into 3 and lay them out, you know, with gloves, and then put a little cinnamon on, because in case they start looking brown, the cinnamon covers that up and they like that. Nice. And then we ended up buying quite a good dehydrator that does shut off after time. I don't want to burn the school down. And so, you know, you can set it, and really by overnight we dehydrate the apples, flats of them, you know, and then put them in Ziploc bags and feed them to kids, and they love that.
Nice.
You could also do the kale chips that way too, Laurel. I hadn't thought about that.
The which?
Kale chips.
Yeah. I haven't tried kale chips that way. Usually the olive oil and a little sort of salt is what they enjoy, but I don't know, maybe that would be okay in the dehydrator.
I have a really good dressing. If you use like carrot juice, like you can juice your own carrots or like buy carrot juice, and with garlic and like a whole bunch of spices, and it's delicious. You have like the sweet carrot juice with it, and like the salty and like spicy. It's so good.
Put that down somewhere. Yeah, write that. Like post it somewhere.
Yeah, I should find it. It was at a Prince George workshop I went to, actually. But anyway, because I find sometimes with the olive oil and salt, like it doesn't keep that long, then it like kind of gets soggy again. But at least if there's like a really flavorful dressing on it, I don't know, the carrot juice kind of keeps it more, I don't know. Anyway, it's really good. Okay, great. Okay, Next slide.
Just before you go on, another option is,
Mm.
as you say, with the carrot juice, but if you've got access to a lot of apples, as Laurelyn mentioned, maybe juicing
Oh.
apples, if you've got access to an apple juicer, then you can feed the kids the apple juice right there and then.
That's fun. And if you grow wheatgrass, you can like juice it in at the same time and make like green apple juice. And then you
Mm.
get to blow their minds when it just tastes like apple juice.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good idea.
Yeah, just before we go on to the full dates, just another resource. The
Yeah.
Junior Master Gardening Program was started in Texas, and their website has a lot of sort of information for how their program works. I just thought whether that might be another resource that's available to you.
The Union Master Gardener?
Junior Master Gardener.
Oh, junior. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, started in Texas. So look for Junior Master Gardener, Texas.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Rowan, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
good at finding links. Yay.
Oh,
I think
Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah, that looks like it. Great. So we have another 2 to kind of finish out the year. Tuesday, September 20th and October the 18th, I think it was. And then it'll be back to that after school time again. 3:15 to 4:30. Thanks, Marcus. Yes. And we will be with you again. And probably Rowan and Sonia. And yes, thank you both for coming. As always, we'll have the recording and everything on slides on our website. So you can check back there to share out or
okay,
rewatch, I guess.
great.